des demandeurs d'asile, des repatriés et des personnes déclassées à l'intérieur de leur pays. Nous sommes de différents pays d'Afrique, de l'Algérie, de la Guinée, de la Tunisie, de Morocco, du Soudan et de la Somalie et du Sénégal. Je vais céder la parole à ma collègue qui va vous présenter les différents témoignages de ces personnes. Merci.
Thank you very much. We are meeting to discuss about refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced persons, and migrants in Africa. Group 6, member of Group 6 is Madame Mano Bhandi, Mr. Jawad Boudan, Madame Sana Gourouba, Abdelkader Farah, Michel Zouid Salani, Mr. Naji Melaison, Sadiq Niamdi, Abdelrahman Kassi. About Algeria, escaping from Libya as finally immigrating, they're looking for a better life, and Algeria is a transit tour, and they suffer from terrorism. About Kenya is a country of social transit point because it's neighbor of South Sudan, and a lot of children from Sudan and around the country, especially Ethiopian children. After election, government promised them to give them humanities, education and health. About Tunisia, war in Libya, they get more than 1 million refugees, have a problem in health, education, etc. And they are thrown in the country and they suffer from poverty and war. About Morocco, 10 years ago, Morocco was a transit station to Europe. They have regularization of paper and some law. They have a good condition and advocacy to have the same rights. Children go to school and start to practice Arabic. We don't have any refugees in Morocco. About Sudan. Sudan is a country of transit because the people there come from Ethiopia, Syria, Eritrea, etc. They have human traffic and difficult problems from the government to stop these crises, and they have also dark policies, and they suffer from difficult problems about traveling to the refugees. About country of Somalia, they have refugees from Kenya, Ethiopia, and many others. Many Somali refugees return to Somalia because of war in Yemen. The most challenging is looking for a good and living place. They have also open land and suffer from war inside Somalia. About Senegal, they suffer from refugees also from 2008. They have a problem of identity resources. They are Mauritanian. Majority of refugees, more than 60,000 refugees refused to leave Senegal. They have also problem of registered children if they are from Senegal or Mauritania. Senegal is country of countries who want to immigrate by the sea. Also, Senegalese immigrate to Morocco. A lot of people die in the sea because of poverty and joblessness, etc. Our recommendation is strengthen collaboration between UA and UN to implement global compacts on migration, locally adaptation to African specificities, states should give solutions to the factors that cause displacement and migration. For example, give solutions to conflicts between states or around groups, create jobs to the youth and give them skills. We recommend that the EN is anticipation of the report in the Global Compact for Migration, make all members aware of the protocol and its role in improving the migration situation with the region. We urge the IU to make an investigation and the crime made against migration in Libya. Open the African Commission to stress on the necessity to member states to ratify the Kampala Convention. The last recommendation is support the protocol of the right of nationality of Africa. Thank you very much.
for cross-border reprisals, included when defenders are persecuted in their home country for their human rights work, regarding their engagement with regional mechanisms and look for protection in another country. The biggest problem that they face is that the government will still use diplomatic relations, state relationships to relay information to the state they are currently in, to still discredit them. And the second point that we discussed about was reprisals against family members of the defenders because of their human rights work at the regional level. We didn't really feel that the second question was applicable to the theme of our group, so we kind of went straight into the recommendations. The recommendations that we gave for the African Union Commission were, for the first one, to get states to pledge not to commit reprisals against defenders. The second one being implementing the resolutions on states not intimidating defenders for engaging with the African Commission, which was a resolution that was adopted at the Commission. And the last one was to encourage states to adopt national laws guaranteeing the right to access and communicate with regional bodies and the obligation not to intimidate and carry out reprisals against human rights defenders. As for recommendations for the African Commission, we thought about more human resources allowing better response of the focal point on reprisals in those cases, implementing protective measures for defenders who face reprisals, document those cases, including in an annual report that the focal points will present to the African Commission, address cases directly with states and follow up on them, and the last one being, after consulting the defender himself, make a public statement calling out states on their obligations. Regarding the issues to be included in the NGO forum statement, we thought about three things. So calling on the reprisal mandates on what kind of protective measures can defenders benefit from when suffering reprisals by states at the Commission, for issuing a statement at the Commission, so reprisals that are committed directly at the Commission, not in their home country when they come back. How can the focal point on reprisals respond quickly to these reprisals? We are concerned about intimidation and reprisals committed by recent host countries of the Commission's ordinary sessions against defenders seeking to engage or engaging with the Commission, including in Mauritania and in Egypt. And the last one, the Special Rapporteur should immediately implement his mandate as a focal point on reprisals, including documenting specific cases of intimidation and reprisals, taking up specific cases with governments and publishing an annual report. And that is it.
On va aux recommandations. Ah, d'accord.
Thank you, candidate. Any comments? Thank you. Is the report ready?
Yes.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
Nieka Ochala, having as member Abdelaziz Dina, Awad Bashar Omer from Nubaba Association, Nashidin Musa, and Alex from Mebio Benin, Uganda, and the rapporteur is Joseph Desiré from the Code Cameroon. So, concerning the first question, as a priority, we think we have only one priority, is to create an enabling environment for indigenous people and community rights in Africa by reducing war and conflict, improving governance and rule of law, ensuring provision in the legal framework to recognize indigenous people and their social and cultural rights. Concerning question 2, specific focus in Cameroon are two: lack of participation in civil life, like lack of birth certificate, ID card, non-recognition of traditional rulers of indigenous people. And the second is the land tenure system insecurity with difficulty of access to land, ownership and control for indigenous people in Cameroon. At this level, we recommend that the Cameroon government should take genuine action to ensure equitable access to civil statute documents and fair participation of indigenous people. Ensure socio-economic and cultural rights for indigenous people and stop land tenure system insecurity. You know, in Cameroon, since 2011, we are facing a land reform, a land policy reform that is still ongoing. We hope that this will be an opportunity to stop the land tenure system insecurity for indigenous people. In Uganda, we have reported intimidation by government security agencies, land tenure system insecurity, forced eviction, marginalization and discrimination in decision making, and some human rights violation and abuse. In Sudan, we have the non-recognition of indigenous people presence in the country, the lack of socio-economic and cultural rights for indigenous people, and the land tenure system insecurity. We then recommend awareness creation in the indigenous people presence in Sudan, ensure socio-economic and cultural rights for indigenous people, and stop land tenure system insecurity. In Ethiopia, we report the non-recognition of indigenous people and international instruments that recognize their rights, the forced displacement due to refugees from South Sudan, need of resettlement of indigenous people in their homeland, and the land tenure system insecurity. We have also some common issues in Africa that are the right to land and natural resources, the right to life for indigenous people, the lack of consultation and consent. And we think indigenous people should be recognized as custodians of land and defenders of climate change in Africa. They also need some compensation for land, livelihood, and life lost. As action, we think it's good to end discrimination against indigenous people and encourage political representation of indigenous people in Africa. Concerning the question, the third question, we have 3 recommendations for the EU Commission and also the ACHPR. Adopt a continental legal instrument that protect the rights of indigenous people. Ask African states to ratify all international legal instruments protecting the indigenous people rights and ensure customary land tenure system for indigenous people in Africa. As resolution to include in the NGOs Forum Declaration, we think that government should end the displacement cycle created by refugees who push indigenous people to forced displacement in Ethiopia, Sudan, Uganda, and other countries without any government intervention. The UN and African government should multiply joint action to secure spaces for indigenous people homeland now destroyed by refugees, increasing climate change. Protect indigenous people, indigenous human rights defenders from reprisal from states as from companies. Adopt sound development policy that benefit indigenous people in consultation with them in accordance with international instruments to end stateless and forceful eviction. We did not find some other comments, and I think that is all for the Group 7. Thank you very much.
Any comments from the group? None? That was a faithful report. Sexual orientation and gender identity group. Are you ready for your group? Okay. Yes, please.
On avait dit au départ que dans tous les pays
For the first question, we consider that currently there is no priority for LGBT people under the theme that's been discussed. though we recognize the existence of Resolution 275 and the need for us to step up a bit more on the resolution that has been implemented and ensure that states go by that resolution. With question 2, we had Uganda telling us that still there is the existence of the penal code in the criminal that criminalizes same-sex activities. They also recognize that in 2009-2014, there was the introduction of the Anti-Homosexuality Act, and it was pulled down because of technicalities. There's also the issue of the high rate of killings or hate crimes against trans people in Uganda over the past 4 months, and various people have been killed in Uganda there. There's also the shrinking space for LGBT people to have their work done, especially organizations, to do their work. They recommend that there's a need for the African Union or the Commission to push for the implementation of the Resolution 275 and ensure that all rights that have been mentioned in the resolution are implemented. Kenya also mentioned that there's still the penal code in their country. They have tried using litigation to cut down the criminalization of same-sex activities of LGBT people, but it wasn't successful. They've also introduced an appeal system, which is ongoing. There's increased research on LGBT people in the country, in Uganda, and also there is the need for their recommendation. They recommend that there's a need for increased voices of other allies, apart from LGBT organizations in the country. And also there's a need for LGBT people in refugee camps, especially in Kenya, to come together to start talking about the issues that they face as LGBT people. We also had South Sudan, who mentioned that the only law that exists imprisons people, LGBT people, for 10 years if they are caught under the law. There's increased violation of the rights of LGBT people and violence against LGBT people, and the increase in people fleeing from the country to other places because of their sexual orientation and gender identity. Human rights defenders are also facing persecution in the country, and they are also being arrested for the work that they do. And therefore, organizations in the country are not able to do their work as expected. Ghana also mentioned, same as other countries have mentioned, about the existence of the penal code that criminalizes same-sex activities. There's currently a conference, a regional conference that's going to be held in Ghana by the World Council of Families, which is a homophobic and anti-feminist group, and which is being worked on at the moment. South Africa also recognized the existence of the progressive nature of their constitution when it comes to LGBT people. There is the introduction of the hate crime and the hate speech bill, which is in process, but also the important need to mention the increased crime against trans people and intersex people, and the need to implement properly refugee laws, because South Africa on the continent seems to be a place where a lot of LGBT people will run to as refugees. So there's a need for them to implement good refugee laws in South Africa to ensure that people have a safe haven. Now, what are question 3 that mentioned? We said that 1, we want to ensure that there's an inclusion of LGBT people in the discussion for refugees and stateless people, and recognize the vulnerable nature of LGBT people when it comes to issues of refugees, stateless people, and returnees. Because we shouldn't only recognize fighting or war and other issues, that natural disasters, as the only thing that's possible to refugees, but also the issue of sexual orientation and gender identity on our continent. For us, we have a short statement which we say for LGBT people to be able to live in their countries and also to leave, that is to move from their country when they face persecution. There's a need for Africa to recognize the important need of decriminalizing homosexuality in any form or whatever form that they have put in their laws. And also to mention that when a person flees because of their sexual orientation and they get to any country, the refugee system and the systems that recognize refugees to recognize them and see them accordingly as people who are refugees, not only because of war and other crimes, but also because of their sexual orientation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any comments?
Bonjour. Nous célébrons à présenter la situation de l'évolution de l'abolition de la peine de mort, mais nous sommes tous attelés sur les recommandations. Ce sont les recommandations que nous allons vous présenter. Je tiens aussi à signaler que le groupe a été coordonné par Comini et le rapporteur c'est moi-même, Léla Kambaja. Voici les recommandations à l'endroit de l'Union africaine. Examiner le projet de protocole africain contre la peine de mort adopté en 2015 par la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples. Veiller à ce que les États membres respectent leurs constitutions respectives s'agissant du droit à la vie. S'assurer que les personnes arrêtées bénéficient d'un procès équitable.
Okay, some of the recommendations are written in English, so I'm going to say the English version. Another recommendation is flexibility of the process to access the African court by African citizens. Force all states members ratify the protocol which bind the African court. Closure of all detention places which are not recognized to be detention places, embrace alternative to death penalty. Also, the African Union should implement all the laws abolishing arbitrary extrajudicial, summary or arbitrary killings and develop monitoring evaluations.
Et à l'endroit de la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples, nous recommandons de relancer le projet de protocole africain contre la peine de mort pour le faire examiner par l'Union africaine, de rendre plus flexible l'accès au statut de membre observateur pour les organisations de la société civile, rendre plus flexibles les conditions de recevabilité des plaintes individuelles. Le groupe de travail et la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples doivent également se rendre dans les pays pour enquêter sur les cas d'exécution extrajudiciaire sommaire et arbitraire.
Okay, for number 4, the NGO forum statement to be delivered. We recommend for the opening ceremony, the African Commission for Human and People's Rights should relaunch the draft protocol against the death penalty so that it can be adopted by the African Union and ratified by the African countries. Thank you. That's what we have.
Thank you very much. That was short and sweet. Any comments on the report? The next group is Toto. Is the report ready?
Merci. Alors, le groupe est composé would benefit more if we really take the message. Thank you very much, Wazin, and good morning to each and every one of us. I will be very brief in my intervention in time of introduction. I will give a brief background as to why the AU-UN Joint Framework on Human Rights. And secondly, I will also talk about the relationship between the African Union 10 Years Human Rights Action Plan and also with the framework. And finally, I will also dwell on why it is very important for the civil society organization to make input into the framework. As many of you may be aware, there are so many similarities with regard to the work that the African Union human rights system, together with that of the United Nations human rights system. So we share so many similarities in time of our intervention and also in time of institutional structure and the work that we do. So it is in that context, among other explanations, that the two human rights systems decided to come together to develop planning to develop the joint AU-UN human rights framework for Africa. But having said that, it is also important for us to emphasize that when we say AU-UN human rights framework for Africa, the regional economic community are also involved. The civil society, and all the relevant stakeholders are part of this African Union and United Nations framework development. To further buttress my point, let me just quickly indicate that the United Nations human system generally has three key pillars that guide their works globally in the areas of intervention. And these pillars include the development pillar, followed by the peace and security pillar, and finally the human rights pillar. The same thing can also be said of the African Union in time of the intervention of the African Union in general. The work is also divided into these three key areas of similarity. The first one is socio-economic transformation and development pillar, followed by the peace and security pillar, and finally the governance and human rights pillar. And when you look at it under this pillar, both the African Union and the United Nations have come together to develop a joint framework in time of collaboration and intervention on development. The same thing also applies with regard to the issues of peace and security. So the areas where we have not yet had a joint framework is that of the human rights. And that is one of the reasons why we are currently coming together, to develop this AU and UN joint framework on human rights. Having said that, some have been asking me that what is the difference between this joint framework, AU-UN joint framework, and the 10 years human rights action plan? This is just to say that, as you will recollect, that 2016 was declared by the African Union Assembly of Head of States as the African Years of Human Rights, with emphasis on the rights of the woman. And this declaration was made by the Assembly of the Head of States. And in addition to that, the Assembly of Head of States also mandated all the African Union organs with mandate on issues of human rights to develop a 10 years human rights action plan to operationalize their 10 years human rights declaration. And so the development of the 10 years human rights action plan is ongoing. And by December, first week of December, we are going to finalize that document, so we are going to organize a member state validation on that 10 years human rights action plan. And that document, hopefully, will be adopted by the first or second week of December. So this action plan is going to be together, the joint framework that the AU and UN are currently developing is going to complement this 10 years human rights action plan. So in other words, it's going to be like a form of a replica. So there's not going to be much differences. Actually, to strengthen this 10 years human rights action plan, and both the UN and AU will be working together to implement the two instruments. Having said that, we feel that it is important for us to do serious consultation on this particular framework that African Union and United Nations are jointly developing. As you will agree with me that the process of developing framework is also as important as the content of the framework in itself. And that is the reason why we have decided to prioritize consultation with different stakeholders in the development of this AU and UN human rights framework for Africa. The first consultation that happened took place in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and that was in June, on the 19th June 2009, where all the different AU organs with mandate on issues of human rights came together with United Nations institutions with mandate on human rights. We started brainstorming on what the outline should look like, what the content should look like. And this consultation was also followed by another consultation in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And that is where we brought together the regional and the representative of the regional economic communities to also brainstorm and also look at what this framework will look like. The third consultation that we have had is with the NANRI, called the Network of African National Human Rights Institutions. So we had the consultation also with NANRI in September in 2019. So they have also made their input and recommendation on what should go into the joint framework on human rights that both the African Union and the United Nations is developing. And in addition to this, we feel that the civil society is very, very important. And like some of you must have been following, you will realize that the policies that the African Union has been developing in recent time, the civil society has been playing a critical role. And I will just give you two examples. The first one is that one of the African Transitional Justice Policy. The civil society played a critical role with regard to the development of that policy. The same thing also happened with regards to the 10 years Human Rights Action Plan that the African Union is developing. The civil society also play a critical role because we know that they will also support in time of advocacy and implementation of that policy. And this is the reason why we feel that it is very important that this presentation is made to this forum so that the civil society organization can also help us to think through of what we think it is important to be in this particular framework. Having said that, I will now hand over to my colleague who will now take us through the contents of this AU-UN joint framework on human rights that we are currently developing.
And the initial establishment of borders, which were drawn by colonizers, which have since given rise to nationality issues. Many of the stateless or descendants of people who have moved on from, or forcibly moved from one part of Africa to the other, are now experiencing issues around nationality or getting documents. So now what's so different about this protocol? So in its definition, the draft protocol encompasses what is called an appropriate connection to a state for somebody to receive nationality. So previously, we've never had, as I mentioned earlier, we've never had an instance where there's a wide net or an all-catch phrase for stateless persons. So now this appropriate connection is defined as a connection by personal or family life to a state and shall include a connection by one or more of the following attributes. So either birth in that relevant state for you to receive nationality, or adoption by a national of that state. It further mentions that you have to be a habitual resident in the state. Another alternative is marriage to a national of the state. There's also, again, birth of one parent who's at least of that particular nationality. And another interesting addition to this protocol is the habitual residence. So it basically says that if one has a stable, factual residence in that state, they should be granted nationality. And so another one would be place where a person has established his or her permanent residence again, as I've said. So this previously, in all the conventions that I've mentioned previously, there was none of this. So another new addition is that the protocol defines nationality as a legal bond between a person and a state, as opposed to ethnic or racial origin. So now this is very progressive because usually states have a tendency of requiring individuals to prove their nationality in such a way that it's not doable. But because of this appropriate connection, together with the fact that all you need is a legal bond and habitual residence, a it's useful for individuals who are struggling with their nationality. So now, another connection, another definition which is useful in this draft protocol is that they encompass the word parent to include not only a mother or a father, but also yes, adoptive parents or any person whom the state of parents within whom the state of the parent or within a child, or no, whom the state of a parent-child relationship has been established. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, you don't have to have a biological link. If there's a parent-child relationship, then this should be enough to prove that you are a national. So now I'm going to talk about how it's also useful, particularly to African problems, because in Africa we have a situation where we have many tribes, or tribes that move from one area to the next. This could be because perhaps they have cattle in one area and they graze, depending on basically their livelihood. So, yeah, so now this protocol makes provision for repeated residence, and it also makes provision for burial of ancestors. So, in that if your ancestors were born in that particular area, then you should not be stateless, because you should not be stateless because that means that's a strong enough link. So, and lastly, state parties are also encouraged to use the testimony of other community members as to your link to that country. So now, what are the principles of this draft protocol? So these principles include that state parties are agreeing to ensure that everyone has a right to nationality, and no one should be deprived of recognition of their nationality. It also makes provision for the fact that men and women alike should have equal respect in terms of the birth registration of their children. And so lastly, on succession of states, the draft protocol reinforces that states should take appropriate measures to ensure that where there is state succession, that the predecessing state should grant the nationals of that state nationality, or the residents of that place nationality, if there is an appropriate connection, as we mentioned earlier. So now, so section 6.6 of the AU Policy Framework document on migration, which was published in 2018, deals with, it recognizes and reinforces that the right to nationality is a fundamental right under international and domestic as well as regional frameworks. And so nevertheless, displaced persons are affected by statelessness, especially women and children. So now, what recommendations do we have with regards to adoption of this the draft protocol? So what we are suggesting is that we follow the West African Action Plan, in that each region should have nationality networks. So now the regional action plan particularly should be focused on the most affected, which is usually women and children. Women because of the fact of gender discriminatory laws. In addition to that, we also recommend that there be, state parties should enhance birth registration in the respective states. So now, where are we in terms of implementing the draft protocol or adopting the draft protocol on statelessness? So as of this moment, the draft protocol is awaiting adoption in 2020. And now, what we are pledging is to have, or what we are asking of the NGO sector is for support in ensuring that in ensuring that there is advocacy for the adoption of the protocol in the respective states or in your respective states. And again, we also requesting that there be, we should join coalition networks. So there's an African coalition network, which is just on a continental level. But then again, there's, as I mentioned earlier, there's regional networks which you could join in your respective regions. So for states in the SADC, there's a Southern African Nationality Network. And again, West Africa has their own network, and East Africa as well. So if NGOs could advocate around having the draft protocol, because of the fact that it fills the gaps where there are gaps in terms of the current conventions, because they don't cater for that, again, the appropriate link or connection to a state, habitual residence, and again there's also state succession, which is currently not being considered. And lastly, the nomadic tribes, because they move from one area to another, now as a result, they cannot access nationality. So if the NGOs in this space could advocate towards that, that would be great. Yeah, so that's it for me. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Donald, who will discuss the draft action plans.
Merci beaucoup, Thierry, pour la brillante communication. Effectivement, vous avez parlé effectivement de la quintessence et des différentes dispositions sur le projet de protocole, sur la partie et le droit à la nationalité en Afrique. Effectivement, il a été très important, donc l'appel que vous avez lancé pour que la société civile africaine puisse vraiment se mobiliser, s'investir pour l'adoption, effectivement, donc c'est important. Sans plus tarder, je vais donner la parole à Dominique Léa, qui est le président de NGOs, Union, qui va effectivement nous parler de la pertinence du projet de fondation et de mise en œuvre de la décennie des droits et d'autres par rapport au thème de l'Union africaine 2019. Et puis spécifiquement sur la patrie et le droit à la nationalité en Afrique. So, Dominique,
Thank you very much, Chairman Jibril, and also Selfatso, especially for giving us the current state of progress with regard to working with our governments and our continental, regional, and national bodies on combating the problem of statelessness and those lacking a nationality on the continent. And I really hope Selfatso and also other colleagues in the Right to Nationality Network that we will humanize this debate and will help us by giving us some statistics, you know, maybe coming from your report on what is the actual state of statelessness, so we actually think of the human beings that are involved and don't just think of it as, you know, a discrete issue. And I'm thinking here of some of the people that on a day-to-day basis we at PAL, the Pan-African Lawyers Union, get to work with, whose right to a nationality has been, they've been deprived of the right to nationality, find themselves stateless or at risk of statelessness. And work, for instance, around the crisis, the political, human rights and humanitarian crisis that has been ongoing in Burundi since 2013. And we're dealing with waves of Burundian refugees and asylum seekers who've been running away from their country from the 60s through the 70s and the 80s, during the major crisis of the 90s and even the new crisis. And they're caught in this conundrum we're talking with colleagues from Cameroon, and especially from Anglophone Cameroon, who really have been declared persona non grata or invisible in their own country. And the only purpose for which they are visible is to be killed. We only recognize you to kill you. Otherwise, you have none of the other rights that accrue to being a citizen, especially the right to protection of your life and of your dignity and of your livelihood by your own government. We're also working around the South Sudan crisis, and we're working with South Sudanese, including those who have run into exile in Kenya, in Uganda, and neighboring countries, and whose status is therefore neither here nor there. And because nobody regards them seriously, even when they become activists for the cause of their country, we find the security forces in the Kenyan government are able to colleague with their counterparts in the South Sudan government and just kidnap them and illegally, extraordinarily rendition them back to their country for purposes of being, tortured and killed because of their work. And even in Tanzania, which many times people consider to be a relatively stable democracy, and one that has played an immensely gigantic role in Pan-Africanism and in helping us foster the Pan-Africanism that we have, the Organization of African Unity, its Liberation Committee, which housed liberation movements for Mozambique, for Angola, for Zimbabwe, for the struggle against apartheid and so on. And we're finding Tanzanian citizens caught in the conundrum where if a powerful person, usually a man, wants your land, they look for a reason and they declare you a foreigner, or a person potentially a foreigner, so the onus of proof, the burden of proof shifts to you to try and present your family tree going back 5 generations to prove that you're actually a Tanzanian. That's happening to a simple village woman that we know who's being harassed like that by the system right now and has appealed to everybody, the ministry, the Human Rights Commission, the courts and so on, and he doesn't get them. And even ordinary Tanzanian or regular Tanzanian activists, you can have done activism in the country for 5, 10, 15 years, like Eric Kabendera, the journalist, or Aidan Eyakuze, the chief executive of Twaweza, a regional CSO. And when you say something that the system doesn't like, the first thing they do is they recall your passport, and then they begin questioning whether you are Tanzanian, yet you're a person whose parents and grandparents actually served in the system. So this thing is real for so many people across the continent. Now, the one thing I was asked to add on today, because we've got colleagues like Ofatso and her colleagues, Lawyers for Human Rights, the Open Society Foundations, IRI, the International Refugee Rights Initiative, who are at the vanguard of the Right to Nationality movement, was the African Union is developing a comprehensive action and implementation plan for human and people's rights. How does this address something such as statelessness and the right to nationality? And I'd just like to give a caution that I do not speak for the AU. The AU speaks for itself. And actually, Johnny Kubaje, Senior Political Affairs Officer in the Department of Political Affairs at the African Union Commission, spoke in the immediately preceding session. So what I can do is speak for PALU, which has 2 roles when it comes to this draft action and implementation plan, which is being developed for the AU. One, as a consultant, because PALU was appointed as a consultant to help the AU develop this plan, and then 2, as a civil society organization itself active in promoting and protecting human and people's rights in the world, and especially in Africa. So as Ikubaje said, 2016 was the AU year for human and people's rights, with a focus on the rights of women in Africa. And the heads of state met, as they usually do, at the beginning of the year to kick off discussion. And they met in the media summit and issued a declaration on human and people's rights in Africa with a special focus on the rights of women in Africa. So they declared there should be a decade for human and people's rights. And also they directed the AU organs and institutions with a primary human and people's rights mandate to develop for them, for their adoption, a comprehensive action and implementation plan on human and people's rights, which will lay out what AU organs and institutions will do for human and people's rights, what the regional economic communities and other regional organizations will do, what the member states themselves will do, and even we as citizens and civil society organizations were supposed to put on the table, and have put on the table, what we will be doing in broad strokes for human and people's rights over this decade. So this is supposed to be a comprehensive plan that lays out the role of multiple stakeholders, working at multiple levels, all contributing to the common goal of protecting and promoting human and people's rights. But without, even though we, the citizens and civil society organizations, are also committing on what we will do, it doesn't overturn the dynamic between the duty bearers and the rights holders, that we are rights holders and we hold our governments and intergovernmental organizations who are the duty bearers to account for delivering on human and people's rights. So from 2016 to date, there have been over 20 consultations that we know of. Some convened by the AU, including the annual high-level dialogues, including thematic meetings for women's organizations, for youth, for human rights NGOs, for the media, and so on. And even some convened by civil society themselves, including PALU and also the Pan-African Citizens Network, which has discussed this issue for 2 years in a row during their annual Citizens Continental Conference that usually precedes the January or February AU Summit. So there's been a lot of discussion on this thing. There's a dedicated website and also social media handles for it because the discussion is ongoing. And as Johnny Kuhaji said, they are hoping as the AU organs and institutions with a key human and people's rights mandate that they'll place this document before the member states for validation in December so that it can go to the heads of state for formal adoption in January next year. So at the moment, they've condensed every aspiration that has come from the citizens, the member states, and the AU bodies in 5 goals in 10 years for human and people's rights. Goal 1, promotion, which is inculcating a culture of human and people's rights in Africa. Goal 2, protection, which is enhancing the protection of human and people's rights in Africa. Goal 3, coordination, which is enhancing coordination, coherence, and cooperation within the African human rights system. Also remembering that the African human rights system exists at 3 levels, at the continental level, at the sub-regional level, and at the national level. So when you talk of enhancing coordination, coherence, and cooperation, it is both horizontal, so between the organs and institutions that fall at one level, be it the continental level, the regional level, or the national level, but also vertical, that there must be coherence from the grassroots really coming to the national level, to the regional, the continental, and the international. So 3 is coordination. And then 4 is building institutional capacity, that is strengthening the institutional capacity of the African human rights system at the 3 levels. Again, bearing in mind that we have past norms, many norms of human and people's rights. More are needed, such as a specific norm on statelessness and the right to nationality, but we have enough norms. And we have created institutions that are supposed to superintend our delivery on these norms. So at the continental level, we have the African Commission on Human and People's Rights in Banjul. We also have the African Court on Human and People's Rights in Arusha, Tanzania. We have the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, based in Addis Ababa. We have the Department of Political Affairs of the African Union Commission, which is meant to be like the political coordinator and focal point for these independent organs and institutions and so on. But these institutions are weak. They've done some things, but they don't seem to be able to definitively intervene in many of the crises we have. So goal 4 was building that institutional capacity. And goal 5 was promoting flagship programs. So they say it will take a couple of years to negotiate and consult and come up with a comprehensive plan. What will we be doing in between? So one of them is promoting flagship programs. And actually these institutions adopted 4 flagship programs, one of which was precisely to uphold the right to nationality and eradicate statelessness in Africa. The others were to promote free movement of persons, rights of residence and establishment in Africa, to promote gender equality within the African human rights system itself, and to promote the implementation of the right to development. So as I say, the four substantive goals are promotion, protection, coordination, and building institutional capacity. But one of the flagship programs was precisely to work towards the negotiation, formal adoption, and then signature and ratification of this protocol on statelessness and the right to nationality, which is ongoing. So we really hope that in terms of promotion, for instance, with specific regard to the issue of statelessness, that we're able to raise the discourse on the importance of the issues of statelessness and promoting the right to nationality. And we're also able to promote adoption, ratification, and domestication of this protocol so that it becomes live. In terms of protection, we then want to see how the human rights bodies will then protect this right. So how will the Commission, for instance, when the protocol has been adopted, when it is engaging the states in treaty reporting or in promotional missions, bring out this issue? But also, how can this issue be litigated in terms of complaints and communications, both to the Commission in Banjul, to the Child Rights Committee in terms of the rights of children conflicted by this, and in the Arusha Court, but at the same time at the sub-regional level and much more importantly at the national level. In terms of coordination, we're saying we want to see how all these organs and institutions at 3 levels will work together, vertically and horizontally, to deliver on rights, including the right to a nationality. So I don't want to take up too much time. I think that's already a lot to try to unpack. But I just, as I hand over back to the chair, say that how can we look at this, especially with the theme of this year, and tell ourselves that what can we be able to deliver and demand our states to deliver. Thank you, Chair.
Merci beaucoup, Président Don, pour ta brillante communication. Vous avez vraiment mis en exergue la situation et réfugiés demandeurs d'asile, personnes racisées en Afrique. Vous avez parlé également de la situation des anglophone au Cameroun. Tout le monde sait qu'effectivement il y a une situation très compliquée là-bas. Et également le Soudan, ça également, tout le monde le sait également, il y a beaucoup de difficultés dans ces pays qui ont la nationalité. Et également, vous avez beaucoup insisté aussi sur le plan d'action de l'Union africaine et effectivement les activités que vous entendez en parler au niveau régional, plus spécifiquement sur le droit à la nationalité, le droit à la libre circulation des personnes et des biens, le droit également des enfants. Donc je ne peux pas vraiment revenir sur tout ce que vous avez à dire. Donc je tiens juste à vous féliciter pour cette communication. Alors donc je vais devoir donner la parole effectivement pour la dame, si vous avez des questions pour le panélistes. Vous présenter.
List, like prior recommendation will deal with the prison condition, and then we can have like an extend.
De reconnaître que l'essentiel des pays africains ont ratifié la Convention contre la torture et autres peines ou traitements cruels, inhumains ou dégradants. Des mesures ont été prises pour lutter contre la torture, mais c'est dans l'application que le groupe a constaté que de fortes améliorations restent à être réalisées. Ainsi, pour aller aux recommandations, nous disons que, en un, nous exhortons les quelques pays qui n'ont pas encore ratifié la Convention contre la torture de le faire, et nous exhortons la plupart des pays africains à ratifier le protocole facultatif contre la torture afin de mettre en place des mécanismes nationaux de prévention de la torture et de les rendre opérationnels. 2. Adopter des lois de protection des témoins et des victimes dans nos différents États. 3. Rendre l'accès à la justice et à la réparation de toutes les victimes de torture et de mauvais traitements en mettant en place des mécanismes de réparation des victimes. Une petite explication, c'est que dans certains pays, seul le juge prend la décision de réparer la victime de la torture. Or, si cela était fait par une commission, cela donnerait beaucoup plus de possibilités de réparer effectivement la torture, puisqu'il faut un psychologue, un médecin, un anthropologue, etc., etc. 4. Pour les mauvais traitements, particulièrement les lieux de détention, nous souhaitons ou nous exhortons les États à respecter les lignes directrices de Luanda et les règles Mandela adoptées en 2015 par les Nations Unies. 5, introduire dans les curricula de formation des acteurs de la chaîne pénale un module de formation à la prévention de la torture. Et la dernière recommandation, c'est de faire en sorte que le forum puisse inscrire à l'ordre du jour un thème sur la prévention de la torture. Nous sommes peut-être un peu égoïstes, mais nous aurions souhaité que ce soit une section thématique au cours de laquelle on pourrait retenir peut-être 2 ou 3 thématiques où les organisations travaillant sur ces thématiques se retrouveront à cette session. De sorte que pour la deuxième session précédant la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme, peut-être que ce soit l'occasion de faire un bilan avec toutes les autres ONG. Voilà un peu les recommandations que le groupe sur la prévention de la torture a fait pour que la torture soit véritablement éradiquée en Afrique. Merci.
Freedom of expression.
Et le Cameroun. Nous avons remarqué que dans le cadre de ce forum, la liberté d'expression semble faire peur. Alors le groupe a commencé par observer que la situation des réfugiés, des migrants, des demandeurs d'asile et des personnes déplacées doit être distinctement traitée. Parce que ces questions ne sont pas toutes de même en matière d'exaction. Les migrants, par exemple, sont une couche particulière qui, par rapport aux personnes réfugiées qui disposent d'un statut, sont souvent en difficulté et très fragiles quand ils sont traités par les États. Alors, concernant la première question, le groupe a retenu que les États doivent harmoniser, n'est-ce pas, les politiques nationales en matière de politiques liées aux migrations, aux personnes déplacées, aux réfugiés, aux demandeurs d'asile. Parce que nous avons relevé que pour l'instant, chaque pays africain traite de ces questions-là comme il l'entend. Il n'y a pas, n'est-ce pas, un document harmonisé sur ces questions-là. Nous avons également demandé la mise en application de la directive de l'Union africaine concernant la libre circulation des personnes. Pour ce qui est de la question 2, le groupe a retenu qu'il faille mettre en place des structures d'information qui prennent en compte la dignité des personnes réfugiées, demandeurs d'asile et migrants en tant que personnes humaines. Pour la question 3, le groupe a retenu qu'il faille recommander l'adoption urgente par les États africains des lois sur l'accès à l'information et la dépénalisation des délits de presse. Également, la ratification, l'application et la vulgarisation des instruments africains sur la liberté d'expression et l'accès à l'information. Comme recommandation adressée à l'Union africaine et à la Commission, nous avons retenu une recommandation qui nous semble essentielle, c'est que les États africains respectent les engagements internationaux, y compris ceux de l'Union africaine en matière de liberté d'expression et d'accès à l'information. Parce que nous avons observé qu'à la fois nous avons des cas en Afrique où les pays ont ratifié l'essentiel des instruments, je prendrai le cas du Cameroun, mais les violent allègrement chaque jour, ou encore des pays où on n'a pas du tout ratifié les instruments, sinon très peu, c'est le cas de la RDC et d'autres pays également. Voilà l'essentiel de nos recommandations. Merci.
Thank you. We go to the next report on human rights defenders, freedom of association and assembly. Yes, please go ahead.
En mettant en exergue la liberté d'assemblée, de réunion, la liberté d'association. Pour la première question, nous avons dégagé un certain nombre de priorités, 3, pour être beaucoup plus précis. La première, c'est la question de la gestion des réfugiés. On estime que la gestion des réfugiés n'est pas bien orchestrée par les États. On a l'impression que les États appréhendent la question sous une forme de charité plutôt que de droit. Et donc, ça pèse doublement sur les défenseurs des droits de l'homme parce qu'ils sont d'abord victimes, mais secondo, tous les réfugiés, les personnes déplacées sont à la charge, bien se constituent un problème pour les défenseurs des droits de l'homme qui sont obligés de voler à leur secours. Il manque donc davantage d'implication de la part des États, mais aussi de l'Union africaine. Deuxième priorité que nous avons dégagée, nous pensons que les États, dans leur ensemble, ont ratifié ou sinon ont pris des engagements internationaux relatifs à la question, mais il n'y a pas cette volonté ou bien il manque cruellement de volonté pour la mise en œuvre. Et troisième priorité, c'est l'ineffectivité du caractère universel des droits de l'homme pour les migrants et les réfugiés. Parce qu'une personne peut se trouver en sécurité dans son pays, mais lorsque cette personne, en raison d'une situation, en raison d'une crise, est amenée à se retrouver sur un autre territoire, on sent que le caractère universel des droits de l'homme dont dispose cette personne n'est pas reconnu. C'est pour ça qu'au-delà de ces frontières, la personne est en insécurité. Sur la question numéro 2, donc concernant le statut des défenseurs des droits de l'homme, nous avons pu dégager comme détracteurs ou bien comme prédateurs des défenseurs des droits de l'homme deux types de personnes. Donc il y a les entités étatiques, mais aussi les entités non étatiques. Donc en ce qui concerne l'État, il se pose d'abord le problème du cadre juridique et nous notons que malheureusement, très peu d'États ont adopté cette loi qui protège les défenseurs des droits de l'homme. Il est donc important que la pression soit mise sur les États afin d'adopter cette loi. Et au-delà de la loi sur les défenseurs des droits de l'homme, on pense que même dans les États où on peut saluer cette initiative, il y a d'autres lois internes qui sont votées et qui, si on ne fait pas attention, vident la loi sur les défenseurs de toute sa substance. C'est la épineuse question de la loi, ou bien des lois sur la sécurité intérieure la loi sur la cybercriminalité. Ce sont des lois qui contiennent des dispositions qui paralysent l'activité des défenseurs. Nous avons noté par exemple que 24 pays ont été victimes de coupures d'Internet en application des lois sur la cybercriminalité en 2018. Donc il y a un travail qu'il faut faire d'abord pour que les États se dotent de la loi sur les défenseurs, mais au même moment, pour les États où cela est déjà fait, il faut faire attention pour que d'autres lois ne viennent pas rendre ces efforts inutiles. Nous pensons donc par exemple au Cameroun, où il y a une loi sur les associations, mais au même moment, il y a une loi qui régit le statut des ONG et qui pose problème aux ONG. Nous avons fait aussi un clin d'œil à la Mauritanie où on sent qu'il y a une difficulté, et là ce n'est pas, il y a une difficulté pour les défenseurs qui interviennent sur certaines questions comme des questions religieuses. Il y a une pesanteur, il y a une persécution, ces personnes sont exclues et cela rend difficile leur travail. Nous avons noté par exemple que toujours en Mauritanie, plusieurs anti-esclavagistes sont poursuivis et sont emprisonnés. Quelques nuances ont quand même été apportées, nous amenant donc à reconnaître que le gouvernement actuel il travaille quand même pour que les situations s'améliorent. En Côte d'Ivoire, il y a des raisons de se réjouir ou bien d'espérer. Nous pensons qu'il y a une bonne pratique en ce qui concerne la collaboration entre l'État et les défenseurs des droits de l'homme pour une meilleure protection des défenseurs. À Nougada, on constate que la commission qui enquête, une commission pour enquêter sur la corruption a été mise en place. Mais pour les défenseurs qui ont été cooptés pour travailler dans cette commission, ils se retrouvent dans une situation où on dirait qu'ils sont piégés parce que autant vous êtes invités à travailler, quand vous décidez de travailler de façon sérieuse, quand vous décidez de ne pas fermer les yeux sur les violations, sur les crimes économiques, vous êtes persécutés. On ne vous retire pas votre agrément, mais vous êtes isolé, vous êtes persécuté et vous n'avez plus donc de moyens de travailler ou bien de subsister. En ce qui concerne la question numéro 3, en termes de recommandations qui est adressée à l'Union africaine, nous pensons qu'il faut nécessairement faire un plaidoyer régional pour amener l'ensemble des États membres à adopter la loi qui protège les défenseurs des droits de l'homme. On pense aussi qu'il faut amener les États à respecter les engagements internationaux qu'ils ont pris sur la question. Sinon, on va faire plusieurs ratifications, mais la situation ne change pas. En ce qui concerne la question 4, et donc quelques sujets de préoccupation qui nous souhaiterons soient transmis à la Commission. Nous abordons d'abord la question de la nécessité de créer des cadres de dialogue entre le gouvernement et les défenseurs des droits de l'homme, parce qu'on estime qu'il y a la Commission est un interlocuteur crédible sur la question des défenseurs avec le gouvernement. La Commission est un interlocuteur sur toujours cette question avec les défenseurs eux-mêmes, mais les cadres pour que les défenseurs puissent discuter, dialoguer directement avec les gouvernements sont rares, donc il faut un travail pour cela. Deuxième élément, nous pensons qu'il faut aussi veiller à ce que les lois internes régulant la liberté d'association, la liberté de réunion, la liberté de manifestation, les lois sur la cybercriminalité, que ces lois que les États prennent en interne soient conformes aux standards internationaux, régionaux et plus précisément donc à la charte. Un clin d'œil particulier pour le Togolais que je suis à la loi sur la liberté de manifestation qui clairement est très liberticide et rend ineffective donc la jouissance de cette liberté. Nous souhaiterons aussi qu'il soit demandé de prendre une résolution spécifiquement sur la question des femmes défenseurs, donc une résolution sur les conditions difficiles des femmes défenseurs. Enfin, nous souhaiterons que un mécanisme pour faciliter les conditions d'exil des défenseurs des droits des hommes en danger soit mis en place. Parce que souvent, les gens s'engagent, les gens ont la volonté de travailler, mais lorsqu'ils se retrouvent en difficulté et qu'ils sont obligés à quitter leur pays, ils se retrouvent livrés à eux-mêmes et il n'y a pas de situation ni de mesure pour les accompagner. Nous avons aussi constaté qu'on ne peut pas seulement demander à l'Union africaine ou à la Commission de travailler pour créer un fonds, mais il y a une collaboration qui doit être poussée entre les défenseurs des droits de l'homme, entre les organisations, pour qu'un tel mécanisme soit huilé et que ça ne soit pas seulement un souhait ou une recommandation, comme on le dit depuis plusieurs années. Je crois que c'est l'économie des choses que nous avons abordées dans notre groupe. Je précise que le président de notre groupe est M. Moussa Sidil Gawi et le rapporteur c'est moi-même, M. Godwin Tché du Togo. Je vous remercie.
Elderly persons and persons with disabilities. Do we have the rapporteur in the room?
It was only as celebrating the 2019 AU theme. What are the priorities of the continent with regard to the situation of refugees, migrants, asylum seekers, returnees, and internally displaced persons? Please focus on dual solutions. One of the challenges we critically discussed was on the statistics on the persons with disability, elderly persons, plus ITBs in general. That if you ask, statistics is a challenge. But second was on regional accommodation, accessibility, affordability, availability, and adaptability. One of the biggest challenges in most of the African countries. Third was on the education and there to health. And therefore, the following are the durable solutions. That's what we proposed. First was on the when legislation done for the refugees should include like a person demanding for the registration of persons with disability in most of the African countries. That in case there is a registration being conducted, must have like a phrase, all of the specific questions, like intending to know the number of persons with disability within the area. Because within the, I can say that ITBs, refugees and returnees, we have persons with disability. And therefore, we must have a specific questions, like questioning on the number of persons with disability for the ease of getting statistics. The second was in the, because of the lack of statistics, and therefore the so-called limited services, for example in Tanzania and in Mozambique, because we don't have the specified data, and therefore it's too difficult for the government or other actors while making the planning. Then we have the so-called limited access to services to this kind of particular group of people, because we do miss statistics, and this is a very one of the difficult challenges in most of the African countries, that we miss data and the statistics, and then this group get too limited access to different services because we don't have identified defined number, and then while planning becomes like a challenge. The second question on the focusing on your relevant group, what is the status of the rights in the country you represent, and what action could be taken to address the identified issues? Of course, I've already answered. I got to the third question. What are the conflict recommendations to be addressed to the AU and the Commission? One of the recommendations that we discussed is calling upon the AU and the Commission to urge African partner states to sign, ratify, and finally domesticate the African Disability Protocol 2018. Because as you know that in the year 2018, the AU summit passed the African Disability Protocol of 2018, and therefore I can see that very few African countries have even signed that document. And then we do hereby call the AU and the Commission to urge the African partner states, to the Commission and to the EU, at least to ensure that this protocol is signed, ratified and finally domesticated. But secondly, is calling upon the AU and the Commission, urging African partner states to sign, ratify and finally domesticate the African Charter on the Rights of Elderly People 2018, because the same also on the year 2018, the EU Summit adopted the African Charter on the Rights of Elderly People 2018. And then if just even here, you can find very few countries have passed the Charter, and then that's our recommendation. And then the fourth question is on the what are the issues to be included in the NGO forum statement to be delivered at the opening of the 65th ordinary session of the Commission. One of our issues that consideration and applicability is that consideration and applicability of sign language to the African Court on Human and People's Rights when a lawyer or other advocate is a person who is visual or other deaf impairment that have a challenge of sign language or other accessibility to lawyers or advocates with visual and deaf impairment. Then we call upon the comment this should be included like in the statement, like an issue, a burning issue, that when these lawyers are in the court representing their clients, or other a criminal offender is a person with deaf or other visual impairment, there's no sign language in the court, and then comes to a challenge of the right to access to justice to this kind of group. Then this should be taken as an issue within the NGO forum. But the second issue in that stakeholders must be consulted when preparing the next session for the purpose of drafting relevant and realistic topics and themes. Because we have identified that sometimes the forum is prepared but stakeholders are not critically consulted. Then sometimes we have some unrealistic topics and themes. So we do hereby declare our interest that next time the forum should ensure that stakeholders are critical and consulted, purpose of ensuring that topics and themes we are getting are realistic and relevant from stakeholders themselves. Another issue that the NGO forum has to report during the opening session, challenging faced by persons with albinism in terms of the security and family unification, because this is still a challenge. We have our colleagues are still in the camps, temporary shelters, and this should be reported in the statement that family unification they have to be taken back to their family and concerned as far as security is concerned. Another, the last issue is on the any other comments, the fifth questions. Of course, the comment what we have tried to comment that calling upon the Commission to urge the African partner states to adopt the Regional Action Plan on Albinism 2017 as the national policy within the area of jurisdiction. As you can all know that on 2017, the Pan-African Parliament adopted the Regional Action Plan on Albinism 2017. And therefore, this Regional Action Plan should be domesticated into a national action plan on different African countries. And therefore, we are urging the Commission, calling upon all African member states so that this Regional Action Plan becomes part and parcel of the national policy in the area of sovereignty. And that marks the end of our presentation. Thank you so much. God bless the Commission. God bless Africa. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yes.
Dans les conditions de détention, 15 participants sur une bonne dispute. Au niveau des intervenants, qui ont été listés ici, sont pratiquement uniformes à la prison pour les pays qui sont représentés. Nous avons soulevé la population carcérale avec des taux qui vont à plus de 500% dans certaines régions. Le non-respect des règles internationales, régionales et nationales, les standards internationaux de la protection des droits de l'homme des prisonniers, notamment la Convention internationale sur les droits civils et politiques et le respect des standards et des Nations Unies pour le traitement des prisonniers. Car la lenteur judiciaire de l'administration contraire à gérer les dossiers non-respect des délais légaux, entourant la garantie judiciaire, la détention préventive en plus de temps que prévu, et les détenus restent parfois sans jugement pour la plupart. Il y a les cas de développement des prisons qui a été soulevé qui fait ressortir le non-respect des normes en matière de construction des prisons, le manque d'informations sur ce qui est le cas spécifique du souvent sur les prisonniers qui sont arrêtés, souvent les prisonniers qui ont de façon plus spécifique, nous avons eu l'exemple de l'Angola qui a parlé des arrestations abusives au niveau des migrants. Il a été soulevé que les migrants sont emprisonnés dans des lieux sévères, à l'abri au-delà des réfugiés, des avocats qui n'ont pas accès, et les ambassades n'ont plus pas accès. Et l'information a été révélée au groupe que près de 2000 Congolais sont en train dans le pays, sauf qu'on ne sait pas de quelles conditions. Au-delà de tout ça, nous avons formulé quelques recommandations. Je vais laisser en dire entre deux vous citer.
Au-delà de tout ce qui vient d'être cité, on a formulé quelques recommandations. Et la première recommandation va dans le respect de standards internationaux pour la protection des droits de l'homme, des prisonniers, notamment la Convention internationale sur les droits civils et politiques et les règles minimum standards des Nations Unies pour les traitements des prisonniers, ainsi que les règles de mondiales. On a aussi suggéré que les lois nationales soient mises en conformité avec les lois internationales, surtout pour ce qui concerne les différents pays qui ont constitué le fait qu'ils ont des lois qui ne respectent pas les droits. Nous avons aussi suggéré le fait d'humaniser certaines prisons, et cette humanisation passera par la formation, par exemple, du personnel pénitentiaire sur les droits humains. Cette humanisation passera aussi par le soin, l'accès aux soins de santé et accès par exemple à l'alimentation. Là, c'était pour mettre un point sur les cas de la RDC où la plupart des prisonniers meurent par manque de soins de santé et par manque d'alimentation. Nous avons aussi dit, si on arrive à redéfinir la notion même de la prison, cette fois, on veut qu'on puisse s'attacher à la notion de la réinsertion qui doit suivre après, et que dans la prison, on insiste beaucoup plus sur les renforcements des capacités, pour que les années passées en prison ne soient pas des années perdues. On a aussi insisté sur le fait qu'on doit travailler pour la promotion des peines alternatives à la détention. Par exemple, dans certaines législations, il est dit que telle personne est punie ou sera punie de peine de servitude pénale ou d'amende. C'est mieux dans ce genre de situation de privilégier les peines d'amende et les peines de servitude pénale, et bien sûr d'autres peines alternatives qui ne sont pas la détention. On a parlé d'avoir une bonne politique pénale qui catégorise des infractions au lieu de construire des prisons. Parce que là, on a trouvé les cas du Bénin qui venaient de construire des infrastructures, mais 6 mois après, ces infrastructures étaient vraiment pleines, et on a essayé de réfléchir sur une bonne politique qui va venir régir cette catégorisation des Et cela nous pousse à connaître les séquences forfaits des discours et les données dans le présent. C'est son direct peut-être plus à l'aise que dans la société. On a essayé de bloquer des questions beaucoup plus spécifiques par rapport aux différentes cellules dont les présidents. On a insisté sur le fait de la séparation des cellules entre les femmes, les hommes, les enfants, les civils, les militaires, mais aussi entre aussi les intersexes qui doivent aussi être séparés les uns des autres. On a évoqué l'importance de renforcer le travail de la société civile et d'encourager le travail dans les autres, parce que cela émanait d'une bonne pratique qui nous a été partagée par la Tunisie, qui est parvenue à mettre en place, évidemment pas sous l'effort de la société civile, une institution, et laquelle institution aimerait s'occuper des alternatives, des autres alternatives à la détention. Et c'est une institution qui a été déjà inscrite dans la Constitution et actuellement elle travaille sur plusieurs projets dont le but concerné ces projets-là sur les alternatives sur la liberté conditionnelle. Les alternatives sur les alternatives à la détention dans la liberté conditionnelle et d'autres alternatives. Ils ont donné l'exemple, par exemple, le fait que les policiers ne doivent pas décider seuls, par exemple, de l'avenir d'un détenu et qu'ils doivent considérer d'autres personnes avant de donner sa décision et bien d'autres exemples. Nous avons aussi donné une recommandation par rapport, ça c'est vraiment spécifique au Soudan, quand ils ont évoqué les cas de déplacés, on a formulé la recommandation par rapport à avoir un accord de paix entre les Soudanais, avec les autres et conscient que les causes profondes de la surpopulation carcérale sont principalement liées au maintien des tensions en relation des garanties judiciaires, nous invitons la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples, ainsi que les États membres, à veiller à la réflexion, à l'adoption d'une politique pénale qui prend en compte le respect des droits intellectuels de vie et de démocratie.
Any comments on the two reports? Yes, please. You have the floor.
Although I was not part of this group, I would just like to add a recommendation comment. Basically, I have been to several prisons, I've been in several prisons in Nigeria, so I know that the situation in Nigeria may not be far-fetched from what is obtainable in other countries. Therefore, I see two basic challenges will not, I repeat, they will not, really benefit in the long run. So I believe, and the prison system is so easy that whatever interventions are being given can be given directly to the prisoners. So for instance, one of the reasons why first-time offenders become radicalized and they commit other crimes is because they are kept together with perpetual criminals in the prison. So if there's a way that the first-time offenders can be separated from the perpetual criminals, because instead of the prisons becoming reformation centers, it's actually breeding ground for commission of breeding ground for criminals. Secondly, because these prisoners they go in, these citizens go into the prisons, and because there's practically no information going in there, so definitely crime will become attractive. So another way of helping the prisoners is by maybe putting facilities like libraries and all that, so that you get them busy. Because like popularly said, an idle man is the devil's workshop. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
So I would ask maybe I would propose that the AU should suggest or should instruct the correction systems in Africa to move towards that what is known as the management strategy. You have all these limitation, social intervention, every program are connected with these new strategies. But if we are using the old system which has been here since time immemorial, we won't change. The current 21st century correction system goes better. You move from the old one to another risk management.
Se trouvent, ce sont des conditions très précaires. Mais au-delà de cela, nous remarquons que chaque fois que ces prisonniers ressortent, alors qu'on dit que la prison c'est un lieu de rééducation, mais en RDC, généralement c'est pas le cas. Quand ils sortent, soit ils deviennent pire que ce qu'ils étaient, soit quand ils sortent, ils ne sont pas une main d'œuvre pour le pays. Alors nous recommandons, si la RDC peut réellement orienter les prisonniers en étant dans ces 4 murs, ils peuvent être quand même soit formés sur certaines questions, soit orientés pour qu'au moins ils vont sortir de ces 4 murs, qu'ils soient réellement une main d'œuvre pour le développement du pays.
Ne sont pas respectés tels que la prise à liberté de justice, le LMP qui est devenu au-delà du délai fixé par la loi. Il s'agit aussi de mettre en exergue les droits consacrés dans la Charte africaine des droits et l'ordre des peuples. Je vais parler de le droit de se faire assister d'un avocat. Il faut vraiment encourager cela et que ce droit-là commence depuis l'enquête préliminaire jusqu'à la phase du jugement. Nous pensons que la présence d'un avocat déjà au sein de l'enquête préliminaire peut éviter déjà la détention et puis éviter beaucoup d'abus. Merci.
Alors, on a constaté qu'il y a des personnes qui font plusieurs mois en prison, jusqu'à 2 ans. Ça, c'est le cas, par exemple, à RDC, où il y a des personnes qui peuvent faire jusqu'à 2 ans en prison sans avoir été jugées. Et vous comprenez le préjudice que peut subir une telle personne qui est privée de liberté, mais qui n'est pas jugée. Alors, je crois que nous devons recommander aux États africains de faire des réformes des procédures pour qu'une personne jetée en prison soit jugée le plus rapidement possible de manière à ce qu'elle puisse connaître son sort. Au lieu de passer plusieurs mois en prison. Il y a donc lieu qu'on puisse recommander la réforme des procédures, des lois pénales pour que les personnes arrêtées, jetées en prison, bénéficient d'un jugement qui soit bien sûr équitable, mais qui puisse bénéficier d'un jugement accéléré pour ne pas passer beaucoup de temps en tant que prisonnier.
Again, to present on its behalf, and we shall be raising issues, priorities, and recommendations for child and youth rights. Some of the priorities we have is countries should be able to receive, protect the rights of child and youth refugees for a conducive environment and full enjoyment of their rights. And this includes putting in place learning structures and health facilities. Another priority is to do with the domestication of all AU instruments, most especially to the African states that have not signed treaties between African countries that host in refugees. What should be done? We feel there is need for access to health care for young people and children, and this is promoting right to health care, especially youth-friendly ACHPR services. There is also increased youth and child trafficking, both internal and externally, and its effects for exploitative purposes. We look at this in a way that children are easily taken away from their homes, that expose them to being refugees in countries that they have been taken to, and children they use their bodies as body part replacements for other people that have money. In general, to conclude the whole is that we are concerned about the low level of reception of refugee and migrant children and youth in member states and the resultant effects of undocumented children and youth, lack of access to education, health and protection, further concerned about trafficking and its effects on children and youth with a particular focus on the disproportionate effect on the girl child. Our key recommendations: the AU Assembly through the African Union Commission should mandate the African Commission on Human and People's Rights and the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of Youths and Children to monitor the ratification, implementation and reporting of the OAU Convention governing specific aspects on the refugee problem in Africa and the AU Convention on internally displaced persons. The AU Commission should appoint and resource a commissioner for youth in Africa. We see that this is lacking. Improve access to health care for young people, particularly youth-friendly ACHPR services. We need to see an improvement in access to health care for young people. Yeah? The Commission should not consider state reports for countries who have not ratified and implemented in full the Maputo Protocol. Thank you.
Thank you for that report.
Economic Social Rights Group, and we had 6 countries: Uganda, Sudan, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Angola, Sao Tome, and Principe. So we are 6, and then the chairperson, John Robert Ekapu. Rapporteurs, we had 2 ladies, Jackie Akello and Lydia Wite. So question number 1, we basically came up with the 4 priority areas in the continent. 1 is security of the migrants in all countries. The second one is the enabling environment framework and laws that promote and protect the rights of the migrants. Then the third one is sexual and reproductive health rights of migrants and other young people. And then the fourth one, implementation of the Global Compact on labor migrants. This is because migrants workers are usually discriminated against when seeking employment in countries where they migrate to. So that was our question 1. Then 2, on the status of the rights, human rights. 1, we are looking at the poor quality of education is substandard. And then we are looking at the insufficient food supply for the migrants. This is also one aspect that came out. Then the third one is on the human trafficking of migrants, which is happening in some of the countries. The fourth, high levels of unemployment, especially among the people affected, both the citizens of the countries and then migrants and refugees. Then we had the issue of poor health services and limited human resource and budget allocation to health sector, below the recommended 15% Habitat Declaration. Then we had the poor housing facilities across the countries, and then the lack of minimum wage to protect the workers from exploitation. So these were the issues, and then we had identified the actions to the identified issues above. So we had examples from different countries. For example, in Sudan, we say the government should put in place strategies that promote the rights to family, including the right for women to choose their partners. Then still they had that the government should put in place non-discriminatory policies that promote justice and equality for the urban and rural population in access to services. Then we still had another recommendation for Sudan. Government should ensure access to quality education for migrants, refugees, and citizens of the country. And then Uganda, those are the examples. The government of Uganda should enact policies and laws to comprehensively govern and regulate labor migration to ensure that the women and youth are not trafficked into exploitative migrant labor. Then also still Uganda, the government of Uganda should only export labor into countries with which they have signed bilateral agreements to export labor. Then another one is that the government of Uganda should implement the Global Compact on migration. Then the other one, that the government of Uganda should adopt and implement the UN guiding principles on business and human rights. And then also we had that the government of Uganda should set minimum wage for the working population to protect them from exploitation. Another one is that the government of Uganda should appoint and facilitate labor inspectors and labor officers to ensure that the rights of workers are protected. Similarly, the government of Uganda should increase budgetary allocation to the education sector, especially the universal primary education and universal secondary education. And then we had to say the government of Uganda to enact and implement laws and policies on sexual reproductive health rights, such as National School Health Policy and National Adolescent Health Policy. And then the last one, for Uganda, the government of Uganda should build special schools for children with disability. Then Angola, we still had some example in Angola, that the government of Angola should invest more in education of its citizens. Then the government of Angola should empower the human resource of the country. And then the third one, the government of Angola should invest in its citizens to undertake scientific research that will inform innovative development. And then we still had example from Sao Tome and Principe. They say the government should partner with other countries and regional blocks to create jobs for the young people and also disseminate information on the available job opportunities to the population. Still in Sao Tome and Principe, that the government should build special schools for children and adults with a disability with qualified teachers and budget allocation. Still, they say national awareness campaigns on women's rights and the importance of female empowerment for the economy in Africa. Still, Sao, the government should consider public-private partnership with NGOs to improve the health condition in Africa. And then we also have that the government should respect and comply with the periodic reporting deadlines of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights to the Commission. And then we had the Cape Verde, that the government should create more jobs to reduce poverty, and then the government should ensure free access to quality health services for the people, for the poor people. And then we had example again from Guinea-Bissau, that the government should stimulate the agriculture sector by increasing budget allocation to the sector to promote employment opportunities. And then we had the recommendation of African Union Commission, the number of them, but basically we had the key one, that the government, that the African Commission should take into consideration the security and a conducive operating environment for the migrants across Africa. Two, that the African Union Commission to urge the states to implement the Global Compact on labor migration, and also that the African Commission to encourage the government to develop a national action plan for the implementation of the economic social rights, because some countries actually don't have this. That still the Commission should urge governments to consider private-public partnership with NGOs for the realization of economic social rights, and also that the Commission should urge government to put and implement measures to eradicate corruption that hinder the realization of the human rights. And also that African Commission, African governments that have not adopted the UN guiding principles on business and human rights should adopt them with immediate effect to enhance the realization of economic social rights. And then African Commission on Human and People's Rights, that government of Uganda should enact policies and laws to comprehensively govern and regulate labor migration to ensure that the women and youth are not trafficked into exploitative migrant labor. That the government of Uganda should enact a legal aid policy and law for the poor and vulnerable persons to access social justice. Similarly, the government of Uganda to adopt and implement the UN guiding principles on business and human rights. That still the Commission on Human and People's Rights to the governments should prioritize the health sector by increasing the budgetary allocation to the sector to meet the minimum standards. That the government of Guinea-Bissau should stimulate the agriculture sector by increasing budget allocation to the sector to provide employment opportunities. And to sound Thomas and principle, government should build special schools for children and adults with disability with qualified teachers and budget allocation. Angola, we said also that the Commission should, the government of Angola should to empower the human resource of the country. And then the last one is on the recommendation to issues to the NGO forum. One, that the Commission should devise means of ensuring that state parties periodically report on the status of human rights. Then that the African Charter on Human and People's Rights Commission to put in place an accountability and monitoring mechanism for the implementation of the concluding observations that are accepted by the member states. And also that the government should consider private-public partnership with NGOs for the realization of economic and cultural rights, that the government should invest and increase budget allocation to the education sector to improve the quality of education in Africa that is competitive at national and international level. And then the second last, government of Uganda to enact laws and policies on sexual reproductive health rights, such as national school health policy and adolescent health policy. And the last one, the government of Uganda should enact policies and laws to comprehensively govern and regulate labor migration to ensure that the women and youth are not trafficked into migrant labor. So these are the points that we had from the 6 countries. Thank you very much.
For the group, actually I'm not from the group, but I just would like to make a comment. The situation of the socio-economic rights is similar in most of the African countries. Definitely some countries have their specific issues. However, I think one of the areas that should be emphasized is the issue of rural population. In terms of lack of access of the rural population to daily services, in particular rural women. That should be an area of priority, I think, for all the countries. The second point is a point regarding environmental rights. Now the issues of environmental rights and natural resources coming up very strongly, in most of the countries. In particular with issues regarding mining, like for example the situation in Sudan, but in other countries as well, like mining, water resources, this is becoming an issue. And so that need also to be specifically addressed. In terms of actions, affirmative actions for the interest of the population from the far remote areas and also for the interest of women, that should be one of the recommendations. Second recommendation for the African Union is adopting a type of guiding principles on use of environment and issue of natural resources, and also developing something like the right to development. So that should be some of the recommendations that might be useful to advance in the situation of the socio-economic rights. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now to ensure that your recommendations are included in the report and forced migration. Who has that report? Yes, please go ahead.
What are the priorities in relation to the situation of refugee migrants and displaced people with respect to this issue? We noted that the political, economic and social situation in Zimbabwe is going worse and exacerbating internal displacement and forced migration. which is putting pressure on neighboring countries, notably Africa. Human rights cases are non-existent, even as public trust in the government continues to take a downward vertical decline. Human rights defenders, including trade union leaders, continue to face persecutions and another consistent and relentless attacks. We also noted that the disregard and genuine space for civil society organization in the SADC region. And the SADC region issue came up because for the AU, the REX its arm of implementation, and the question around SADC Zimbabwe was strongly highlighted that the peer review situation in SADC is blunt, and so that allows Zimbabwe to get away with a lot of human rights, civil liberty abuses that we need to change. On the status of the right at stake, we noted that the political, economic, and social situation in that country has continued to deteriorate since August 2018 election, directly impacting on the freedom of association, peaceful assembly, and also the economic situation is affecting, and the situation is affecting the economic rights of citizens. And citizens are even not allowed to react to government policies, even when they feel the need to. Example, in January this year, the government arrested scores of people and charged them, including trade union leaders, with all manner of charges, including attempt to overthrow a legitimate government, treason charges, and what have you. In Zimbabwe, this internet and social media were shut down during that process, and intermittently today. And as we speak today, the question of internet usage has become the practice where government shut it down indiscriminately and have criminalized the right of the users of internet under flimsy pretext of state security and stability. Economic rights are undermined through bad economic policies. There is no space for social dialogue and civil society engagement. Again, the question around SADC came up again, given that improving the situation of Zimbabwe, there must be a sub-regional connect. And the fact that SADC doesn't open up its spaces for civil society to effectively engage in that process is something that came out as a concern. And on the basis of, because the government of Zimbabwe is not called to account when it represses the right of its citizens, even from SADC and afterwards. What are the recommendations that we think should be addressed? And some of the recommendations have been made to the AU and the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. One, the AU and the African Commission on People's Rights should work with the government of Zimbabwe and members of the Zimbabwean civil society community, including trade unions, to create a national dialogue space that will be used to collectively deal with the economic challenges bedeviling the country, so as to rein in forced migration. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights should effectively deploy various compliance mechanisms, such as the special rapporteur tool, periodic reporting, and special missions, to get the government of Zimbabwe to respect the right of citizens to hold their government to account. The AU has affirmed a resolve to ensure effective citizens' participation in governance and citizens' contribution to the attainment of the goals of Agenda 2063. The exercise of the right to freedom of association, peaceful assembly, and freedom of expression are means by which citizens can contribute to governance and development. Thus, we are calling on the AUs to take adequate measures, such as the recalibration of our peer review mechanism to ensure the enjoyment of these and other civil liberties. The AU through a joint labor migration program with the ILO, IOM, and the ECA, should continue to prioritize and focus on how to assist the government of Zimbabwe and other African countries on how to use national dialogue to deal with issues of brain drain resulting from bad governance. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights should engage the government of Zimbabwe to genuinely pursue and achieve progressive legal and judicial system reforms. In particular and importantly, the government of Zimbabwe must reform the public order laws and other associated labor laws that affect the right to protest and to strike. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights must hold the government of Zimbabwe accountable for non-compliance with the state periodic reporting conditions. The Zimbabwean state report to this commission that will be discussed at this session did not allow for civil society participation and contribution. Issues that we want to be included in the NGO statement. Coming Chairperson, we ask that the forum should call on the African Commission on Human and People's Rights to demand that the government of Zimbabwe fully respect its continental and international human rights obligations and to implement the recommendation of the UN Special Rapporteur on peaceful assembly and association following its recent 2019 visit. Pursuant to that, we urge the African Commission Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders to visit Zimbabwe and engage with all stakeholders, including trade unions, and to issue a statement on the situation in relation to the African Human Rights Instrument after such visits. Other comment that we discussed is that we have decided to keep this interest group as a continuing group. Continuously we'll be having discussion on Zimbabwe. That is our contribution, our solidarity contribution to improving the situation in Zimbabwe. Also, we have agreed to continue to see how we can get SADC as a sub-region to respect more the rights of non-state actors to engage with our processes. And more importantly, we will be working together on how we can get the SADC region to have a human rights component or approach to its work. Those were the discussions among others that we had. Thank you very much.
Additions? None? Thank you very much. I believe that for their reports. But also to remind them that there is need to hand over their reports to the Secretariat. All of your reports, because if we do not get them tonight, it will be a bit difficult. Then the other announcement is that if you do have draft resolutions, make sure that you hand them over to the Secretariat before midday tomorrow. The drafting committee will be sitting around lunchtime to review and have them ready for adoption. So if you have your reports, if you have your draft resolutions or recommendations, let us have them latest by midday. But for your reports, right, that you've just shared with us, please make sure that you hand them over to Yankuba or you give them to the Secretariat. Okay? I want to thank all of you for staying on to ensure that we finish this exercise. Tomorrow we start at 9, bright and early, and it's the last day, so let's try to make sure that we are here on time, we keep time, and ensure that we have a very fruitful day tomorrow before we disperse and get ready for the African Commission session. Thank you very much and have a good evening.